Hey, I'm Stephen Glosser.
And I'm Megan Pikert.
Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast,
a podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood.
a season that's marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions.
Join us for some real conversations as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life.
We're so glad you're here, and we'd love to have you join our little Going Somewhere podcast community. Follow us on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast and join the conversation.
We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together.
Thanks for listening. Let's jump into today's episode. To this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. What's going on, Megan?
Hey, how's it going?
So good. So good. I'm here with Megan. This is episode 94. We are officially in November, which is crazy. So we're coming up on the end of the year. We're coming up on episode 100. And so thanks for hanging out with us. But how are you, Megan?
I'm good. I had a friend in town this weekend, which was fun. She's never been to Fargo, so I felt like a tourist in my town a little bit, just what would she want to do? What should we see? What are the big things? I feel like we missed some stuff. We didn't go to the Fargo Theater downtown, and I feel like that's probably a staple to get a picture by the big Fargo sign. But yeah, it was fun. Just hung
Missed
out.
opportunity.
I know, a little bit.
Was she even here?
Yeah, I know. She has no proof. We don't have a single picture of all of us together, which is
Really?
funny. Yeah, so she has a 1-year-old son, and I have a bunch of pictures of me and him, and even pictures that she took of us and pictures I took of them, but we just didn't take a picture. We took no selfie this weekend, which is pretty crazy. But
what a bummer.
Okay. She was here.
Yeah, and we even bumped into you at the pumpkin patch, and we could have taken a picture of you guys.
Yeah. It's okay. She is in the roommate night picture, so I feel like that counts.
Oh, that's good. Okay, good.
She was an honorary roommate. We have her painted pumpkin on our porch. So
amazing.
It's like she lives there.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
That's
you guys
so fun.
went to the pumpkin patch, though.
Yeah.
So how was that?
It was good. And we're recording this 2-3 weeks before it'll come out. Because we're actually on top of things, Megan. Look at us.
Look at us.
Look at us. But yeah, we went to the pumpkin patch before this was recorded. And it was great. We've been doing that for 5 years now. And we've either gone with the Hams, who are our closest friends, or our Taylor's sister and her family. They couldn't come this year, but it was always fun. We have some things that we recreate every year. If you saw my story, there's a picture that Taylor's done for 5 years and Kinsley for 4. And then, we just have a lot of fun. It's kind of something that we look forward to, and we did it at the right time. I also put up my Christmas lights.
Oh, I saw them. I was with your children last night, and they showed me. They gave me a tour. We turned on all the Christmas lights.
Yep.
And then turned them off because it's not time yet.
I'm glad you guys turned them on, though. That's something that, I don't know about you, but so growing up, and it wasn't every year, but my dad sometimes waited to put up Christmas lights, and then when it was closer to Christmas, because I think there is a time where it's too early to turn them on, so I don't turn mine on right now. Mm-hmm. But it was early in adulthood for me that I'm like, why would I wait until it's icy and snowy and cold and I have to freeze my hands up? Because that's my memory of putting Christmas lights up with my dad. It's freezing outside. Mm-hmm. So I was like, why not just do it on a nice fall day? And then just set it and forget it. And so that's what I do now. And so went up on the roof, and it was 55 degrees, and it was great. And so, that's kind of, that was our weekend. It's been good. But yeah, those of you listening now, that was a long time ago. So don't act like that was just yesterday. That was 3 weeks ago. But that's where we're at now, which is fun, which is very fun. And if you didn't listen to the last episode with Taylor, you should probably go back and give that a listen.
Yeah, you should definitely go. And I think you should send that to someone that has never listened to a podcast. It's a great introduction.
To a podcast?
Listen to this podcast. Sorry. Listen to this podcast.
What was the first podcast you ever listened to? I don't know, just unhinged. Middle adult woman.
But it was a good time. We loved having Taylor on. She'll be back.
She'll be back. Yeah, she'll be back. It was just fun. Also just hearing things, I talk on here a lot and just in general a lot. And my, with writing and everything, it's very public. I do it in a tactful way, and I don't write everything that I think. But I'm quicker to share things that I'm learning and quicker to share things that I'm like experiencing. And for Taylor, she doesn't ever have that outlet. And so it was kind of fun for her to talk about whether it was like the transition from, full-time ministry into this new season, or her just talking about parenting, her just talking about like our roles in marriage. And like it was just kind of fun. Like that stuff she doesn't have a place that can be talked about. So I don't get to hear all that all the time. So it was just fun for me actually to be listening in on that conversation and contributing, of course, but listening in.
Yeah.
And she also threw in some ASMR. So
yeah,
you literally texted me earlier the day that we recorded it. And I think I don't know what, I don't remember exactly what the text was, but basically you were very predicting, like, she's going to incorporate ASMR, isn't she? And we didn't tell her to. She did it. She actually, before the podcast, she actually hinted at it. So
she was doing it long before we ever hit record, and then we just decided to give her a little free reign. Give the people what they want sometimes. Yep. That's what we do.
So again, if you didn't listen, go back and listen to Partay Time, because it's always a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but what we're talking about today is a little bit on the parenting side, but it's about a book that you read, and you've been talking a little bit about it. We've talked a lot about it, of what you're learning, but it's a book called The Anxious Generation. So what would be, before we get into all the details, give us a synopsis. What is The Anxious Generation? What's the big idea behind the book?
Yeah. So this was one that I came across actually quite a while ago and had put it on my, I got to read this book. And it really it's by a guy named Jonathan Haidt, or Haidt, Haidt. So I apologize, Jonathan. But he talks about what happened in the early 2010s, which was kind of what he defines as the great rewiring of childhood. In just a few years, so his research team, they basically looked at all of this data, all of these, basically all this information about like the increase in anxiety and the increase in depression and the increase in even like suicide attempts and these things amongst teenagers. And basically we're trying to answer the question, like, why? Like what was the spike? What kind of led to all of this increase in anxiety? And so they looked at external factors, including like world events. They looked at different things that were happening with even like school shootings and like all these things. And so they were like, is it an external thing? Is it an internal thing? Is it, and what they really, they were able to look at different history points and realize that, well, no, 9/11 should have, and the things that happened after, a generation going to war, like all that stuff should have happened or led to a spike, but it was basically like a little up increase and then down. So like it didn't sustain, it didn't grow over time. So basically they deducted that it was the phone. It was the easy access to cell phones, to smartphones, and to the internet in your pocket, and to being so wired in and connected, and what that led to. And then also along with that, just kind of like how that impacted childhood significantly over that period of time. Was it basically took kids from what they called a play-based childhood to a phone-based childhood. And so he argues that smartphones combined with overprotective parenting created a generation that's more anxious, less socially skilled, and struggling to grow up. So that was kind of like the big takeaways, and it was really fascinating to me. And it was something that I've been really chewing on for a while now since I read it, of like, man, I think there's things that can be pulled away and shared with the podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such an interesting topic because I think it's so relevant. I think we see it as, speaking as a young adult that was raised with the phone. I got a phone when I was 13. And so I had the beginning of the play-based, childhood, but very much I went through all of my adolescence with it. And then we also see the increase in all the statistics like you talked about. And so it's definitely a relevant conversation, and there is a correlation to it. And so kind of what we wanted to do today was, one, unpack this whole idea, but then, okay, what do we do with this information? How do we build healthy boundaries, rhythms, things like that can still navigate the advancement of the world. Like the phone isn't going away, right? And so how do we use it in a healthy way as a tool and still live like less anxious, less depressed, and lower some of those statistics?
Yeah, and so if you're listening, like this book is really looking at, again, the years around 2010 to 2012 or 2010 to 2015 is kind of this pivot. And so if you think of your own life, if you are 20 years old, in that kind of range, you were a kid. And so just think about your own childhood, think about your own upbringing. Again, this isn't going to be like everybody felt this, everybody, some of our parents were different, obviously. And so the trends and the things may not be something that you recognize from your own upbringing, but I think there's going to be some universal truths and some takeaways when it comes to just phone usage, and when it comes to just that exposure, when it comes to like the problems that it caused in an entire generation. Even if you don't feel that, you'll obviously recognize that in your generation. And so hopefully this will help you along the way. But there's a quote to just kind of frame this a little bit more that I wanted to share. It says, Gen Z became the first generation in history to go through puberty with a portal in their pockets that called them away from the people nearby and into an alternative universe that was exciting, addictive, unstable, and, as I will show, unsuitable for children and adolescents. And so this idea of this pivotal time in your life, it's not an anomaly that it spiked amongst the kids that were a certain age. It's because they were going through puberty at the same time as they were inducted into this world that they were not ready for. And so as much as the phone has obviously had an effect on others, so like even just my generation, I was, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but I was basically 16 or so when I first got like a flip phone that I shared with my mom. So it was basically when I got my license, I would take the phone when I drove places, but it had very limited abilities. I could play Snake. I don't know if you're looking at me confused. You don't even know what Snake is.
I feel like it's unlocking like some weird memory, but I don't know.
It's a fantastic game. If you should play it. But and then on top of that, like I didn't get a smartphone until my senior year of college because I was a communications major and I was running social media for the wellness center at NDSU at the time, and I was realizing how difficult it was to do my job without a smartphone, without the ability to do it wherever I was. And that was kind of like the spark for me of like, okay, I need a smartphone. And so I've obviously seen negative effects of phones. I'm actually in the middle of kind of navigating that again right now, of taking some measures to limit my phone usage. But the anxiety spike, the depression spike was most prevalent amongst kids that were going through puberty, which is a lot of you listening today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So interesting. And yeah, it's just...
Shout out puberty. I don't know why I said that.
Do you regret saying that?
No, maybe a little bit, but not fully.
Yeah.
We all been there.
That's all right. Yeah. It's definitely interesting to grow up with it. I think as a young adult, we didn't know anything else. And so you're going through puberty, teenage years with your phone. You don't realize how it's affecting you in the moment at all until years later. And then, even today, like years later. And so it's definitely interesting to unpack and figure out, okay, how do we live differently? But something that he talks about in the book is this idea of the great rewiring of childhood. And so let's unpack that a little bit. What does that mean? What does the great rewiring mean in the context of this book?
Yeah, so a lot of that had to do with the shift from play-based childhood to phone-based childhood. And so the author basically says childhood used to be play-based, which meant it was outside, it was unsupervised, and it was full of risk and laughter. That's how kids wire their brains for courage, empathy, and problem solving. And so me, case in point, I would spend a majority of my days, even as like a elementary school child in the summer, unsupervised. Like parents knew generally where I was in the neighborhood, but they didn't know exactly where I was. They knew I was on my bike somewhere. Like we would literally bike from the south side of town to the north side of town. And maybe we would let our parents know that we were going on a bike ride. Like we didn't tell them where we were going. But a lot of that, basically what he is saying is that wires kids in a specific way. It teaches them boundaries. It teaches them safety. It teaches them, crossing busy intersections. Like I just remember going, like now with kids, I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that I was able to do this. But there's like this busy intersection in Bismarck, and we would cross it, and we would go get our ice cream cones, and we would bike back with our ice cream in hand and not even think twice about it. But a lot of that just teaches different things: courage, problem solving. I remember being lost one time on my bike, and me and my friend Dan, we had to figure out, all right, how do we get home? Like there was zero navigation device. We had options. We could try to find, we could literally go to a house and be like, hey, we're lost, but we had to figure out, okay, let's point our bikes in a direction and hope that we go closer to something that we recognize. And we had to learn landmarks and all those things. And so the shift around 2012 went to phone-based. Social life moved online. Free play was replaced by curated feeds and even comparison. So like even a video game, it created a world that you could explore, but it doesn't teach the same things. There's no real life consequence. There's no real life, what comes out of this video game. So, and he didn't even argue that video games are evil. It's just like the overall shift caused more damage than we realized. And so, yeah, he goes on to say, there's a quote, "Play is the work of childhood, and all young mammals have the same job. Wire up your brain by playing vigorously and often." And so, yeah, that's just kind of a little bit of like what he means by the great rewiring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super good. And it's such a good call out to just the fact that when you play, you're experiencing more than just like having fun. You're problem solving, you're working on communication skills and all those things that, not that the alternative was necessarily inherently bad. It was just like we lost some of those opportunities to kind of hone in on some of those skills and some of those things. And as you were talking about being lost. I remember being lost without GPS with my brother Matt once, and we ended up just driving until we found a gas station and then had to pull out a map. And it was the first time either of us had ever used a map.
Yeah.
And we were 16 in a car, and we were like, okay. And then thankfully Matt was there because he figured out where we were and stuff like that. But because we didn't have access to technology at that time, we were forced to figure it out and to kind of rewire some of those things and figure it out when we didn't have technology just in our hand. But something else that he talks about in the book is this idea of attention fragmentation, which seems like a big word, but can you break that down for us too? What does that mean?
Yeah,
as well?
I had to kind of dig in and be like, all right, what does that mean? Because he says it's like one of the core repercussions basically of the shift of the rewiring. It's when our attention gets sliced into micro pieces. It's checking a text and jumping into a reel and an email, and our brain never gets to focus deeply. And so he lists this as one of the 4 main harms of a phone-based childhood, along with social deprivation, sleep deprivation, and addiction. And so that attention fragmentation, like less of our attention goes to each thing. And so, obviously ADHD, ADD wasn't like brought on fully but it was one of the things that was massively amplified. Like the data in the research shows, like the phone obviously had a huge thing to do with the increase in those things and just our inability to focus on the task at hand, the things that are in front of us. And so I just think, like, even for me, that's probably been the thing that I've realized in my own, so zoom forward, in my mid-30s, is like the attention that I give to things. Like it's always a temptation to go to that. It's always a temptation to drift into something different, to get sidetracked by something, to read something that takes you on we've all opened our phone and had a purpose in doing so, and then 10, 15, 20, 100 minutes later, you were doing something very far from that original task, and then we realized we never even did the original task. Like, why did I even come on here in the first place? Oh yeah, I was going to send an email, and now I've done everything but that. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from your personal experience, do you remember like when you first got a phone or when you first started using social media, and how you were with it then versus how you're with it now?
For sure. I mean, I think I just, we were kind of the guinea pig generation for a lot of that stuff, at least in the high school level, because a lot of that stuff started in colleges. It started with, it was hyper focused. Facebook was hyper focused at Harvard, I think it was, where it was like basically a social network for the students at that campus. And then obviously it grew. And so then for a while it was only for college students. So I think I was in high school when a lot of these things were made available to under 18. And so, and not geographically, placed. And so I got a MySpace account. And I just remember one of the core features of MySpace was your top friends. And the fact that like we would live our life at school and all of these things, and then we would go online and then we would rank our friends. We would update our top friends, and and I just remember like comparison being probably the biggest thing that I hadn't maybe experienced at the level, like of just seeing the lives of other people, being exposed to the virtual life of people, knowing, and then obviously being able to follow, they didn't really call them this, but like influencers, people that you only knew because they were famous, and now you could see their life up close and personal, like what they were sharing. And the early like Facebook and Instagram pictures are so filtered, it's hilarious. Like and all mine are the same way, but like it was just from the get-go, it was a way to distort reality to tell a different story than the real one. And there's obviously been a huge swing back for me personally, but also in culture generally, of like allowing social media to be true and authentic and not a curated perfect view of somebody's life. Like a lot of people have opened the doors and allowed social media to become more of like, this is the real stuff. And so there's good to it and bad to it. But I would say that's one thing for me. It changed, how I interacted with people. I had now two kind of worlds to keep up with. I had the virtual world and the real world, and the communication was different in those places. I would have conversations digitally that we've stopped having, in person. So it was easier to type out a message and share things. It was obviously easier to type out things that are too strong to have a communication about in person, or it took those things to that. So then it removed being able to read facial, awareness and the other parts of communication. So yeah, I think a lot of significant things for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, part of what the book breaks down to is how this affected boys versus girls.
Mm-hmm.
And because we've had two different experiences. So we're going to break that down a little bit too, of just how social media, how access to technology affected girls versus guys differently. But what did he find in his research as he dug into that?
Yeah, for one, like you said, like it affected everybody, but the effects were different. And I want, as you're listening to this, I just want you to maybe self-evaluate a little bit. So for girls, social media became the main stage. So like that was where life really happened. Constant social comparison, pressure to look perfect, online drama led to what the author calls the age of despair. Rates of anxiety, depression, and self-harm skyrocketed after 2012. For boys, it was a little bit different. It was less visible sadness, more quiet withdrawal. Many retreated into video games, into pornography, a virtual world where you can't fail, but also you can't grow. And so a loss of resilience is a main trait for boys, is like, because the environment, whether it was pornography where you got what you want in the moment, like there's obviously spiritual damage that's brought on there, but there's also social damage, and there's also emotional damage that comes along with that. And then just the idea of virtual world, that there's always a level to conquer, and so you're constantly conquering in video games, but then when you go into the real world, it's not always I'm always conquering. And so you crave that because we're made to conquer. Men, that's a part of the God design on men is to subdue and to take land, and all those things. Like, that's from the beginning of time. God wired that into Adam. And for men that no longer feel the ability to conquer, or it's more awkward to conquer, even just in the realm of dating, like to get a girl to say yes and go on a date, that's a conquer moment for a young man. Well, now that they can do that in a virtual reality, in a virtual world, without any restriction, without any friction or failure, why wouldn't I want to live there, and be there? And so I withdraw from the real, and withdraw from relationships, and withdraw from risk, and live in this place. And so it obviously stunts growth. And I think both of those I've just seen. I spent 6 years as a college pastor and been around young adults for a long time. And this book is one that helped me realize, like, some of the, maybe what has caused some of the shift, or caused some of the things that I was able to see and minister to for all those years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it feels like, I mean, this whole idea really affected girls and guys differently. And for girls, it caused a lot of despair, a lot of self-worth changes, a lot of comparison. And for guys, it was like disconnection from relationships, that they were able to get what they needed without the people next to them forming them and helping them with it.
Yeah. One of the things the book said was, for girls lost sleep and self-worth as their social lives moved from the playground to the screen. And so I think that one of the fascinating things about this book that I realized was sleep deprivation, and like how that was one of the four big problems: social deprivation, sleep deprivation, addiction, and that attention fragmentation. And so the fact that sleep has such a role on this whole thing, on anxiety, on depression, again, it goes back to how God wired us. Like, he wired us for sleep, for like 8 to 9 hours, or 10 or 11 hours for kids that are in puberty and prepubescent. Like, that is something that got robbed. So staying up late, playing video games, or watching movies, or scrolling on your phone, and then the emotional things that come from that, of being alone in your room as a young, specifically female, that's letting these stories come in her mind of why she doesn't look as good as these people, and all these things. And now you're not only damaging yourself in one way, but also now you're only getting 5 hours of sleep because you have to get up for school, and you stayed up under your covers until 2 a.m. Like, man, what a recipe for disaster. And I think that was maybe the eye-opening part of this, is like, it's just more complex. It's easy maybe to blame phones, but to see, like, what were the actual things that happened because of some of this was really eye-opening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you're listening, here's your permission to go to bed early. Do it. You can do it. We believe in you. But yeah, it's that is actually so interesting too, because you don't realize some of those, going to bed, like staying up late, maybe doesn't feel great the next day, but doing that several days in a row over time is
Right.
One, building a habit for you, but also you're never getting that consistent sleep. You're never getting caught up. You're just like maintaining the unhealth and the bad habit with it. So definitely super interesting.
Well, and as we kind of move into maybe some of like the practical, hopefully this has been helpful, just the information, even just to reflect. Really what it says is, this generation, you listening, if you're in your 20s, if you're Gen Z as they've kind of labeled it, it's the first generation to carry both of these things into adulthood: being hyper connected, and relationally underdeveloped. See it in dating, friendships, even in faith communities. So much comparison, but so little presence. And the whole idea of like the lack of real community is one that we're going to talk about. Is kind of, all right, how do we move forward? And this quote will kind of set it up. People don't get depressed when they face threats collectively. They get depressed when they feel isolated, lonely, or useless. And so the idea is, when there's a threat to a community, and people are embedded in community, that doesn't lead to despair. It doesn't lead to hopelessness or depression. It's when you're isolated. It's when you're alone. And obviously that's part of what's happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we can't obviously go back to how it was before phones. Phones aren't going away. The use of them, they are a great tool, as we've talked about a little bit too. But so what can we do as young adults now?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's two big things. Because we can't undo the rewiring, we must retrain, our brains and our habits. And so the two big solutions that I kind of took away, or the two things that I felt were for the community, were one is to limit or delay smartphones, social media. So again, you listening, if you're a parent of young kids, take this to heart. Like everybody in their class is getting a phone, and we're dealing with it now. Kinsley's in first grade and Summit's in kindergarten. It is very normal for kids that age to have smartphones. Mind blowing to me. Unfiltered time of screen usage and phones in bedrooms, like it's crazy. And so you have Kinsley, who's 6 or 7 years old in first grade, who's asking us, and she understands the answer. But she's asked us, like, when can I get a phone? And obviously there's some amazing solutions in this world right now of people that have seen all of this and that are making beneficial. I really do think that there's going to be a huge wave of like the reduction of smartphones in the near future. I think there's enough people that see this as a problem, and I think it'll be more normalized. There's communities already, private school communities, that are already removing, as families, they're making covenants as communities saying, like, we won't let our kids get phones till they're 16, so that they're all in it together. And it's finding pockets of people. So this is for my parenting friends, but like, find a pocket of people that believes the same things and sees this the same way, so that you have community in this. But also for you listening, just limit your smartphone usage. Put the filters on your phone. We'll come back, to this maybe in a second here, but like for me, one of the things recently is that I just recognized, I was getting my screen time reports every week, and I'm like, yeah, I do social media management, and I do marketing. A lot of my work is phone based or computer based. So when I'm gone, or when I'm not at a computer, it's very amazing that I can check my phone at a coffee shop and get work done. But also, obviously, that just opens the door to all the other distractions. So I've just kind of evaluated like that usage. So I've set limits for social media, and so I have to at least consciously like bypass, that warning on my phone to get more usage. Like nobody else can prevent me from going on it, but like it will say, like, you're past your limit. Do you want 1 more minute or 15 more minutes? And I have to click the button. And so even just yesterday, I ran out of time, and I was just like, yeah, I wasn't done, but I can be done. Like, I don't need to be on it. And so that, and then I've also blocked out like everything but a few vital apps from, I think it's 8 p.m. until 7:30 a.m. is kind of the time frame that I set. And so like I can read my Bible and listen to music and text or call. Like that's pretty much all I can do at those times. And so even just in the short time I've been kind of trialing this out again, like it's been huge. So find ways to limit smartphone social media usage. And then number 2 is to rebuild real world communities. It really means, leaning into those real communities where people are gathered and where you can do life with people and be real and raw and share things together and experience things together and communicate together and argue together and all the things that we need to grow resilience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. I've heard it teaching on your habits, and when you try to remove things, you have to replace it with something else. And so when you said like the first one of limit your smartphone or social media use, it's a lot harder if we just limit it and then we just sit there, with no alternative. And so find an alternative, figure out a book that you want to start reading, or schedule a dinner with a friend or something. And I think that also can really play into what you said with your second point of rebuilds real world community. So how can you replace some of those habits, those digital, just like easy grab for your phone with some real connection as well?
Yeah, for sure. And even just yesterday, Taylor and I were on a date, and we stopped by Barnes & Noble and just got a Sudoku book. And it's like, we did one on our phone the other day, and we're like, oh, we should just have one of these so we can just sit and do it together at night or whatever. And so it's just finding those other things that you can do. And I think, a quote from the book was, if we want less anxious generation, we must give kids back their childhood and give ourselves back our attention. And so, like, what's robbing your attention? Resist those things. What's robbing our kids of their childhood? We have to create that. And as a parent, like, this could go a whole nother way. And so we're not going to necessarily dive into this right now, but maybe for a future conversation is just play, because, for us, it's been, we a big part of this. So the book goes into it on the parenting side. Is just like the generation that grew up on the streets, like we see the world, and because of what we see in social media, because of our overexposure to the news and to the negative, 90% of news is negative because that's what gets clicks, that's what gets eyeballs, and that's what makes money. Therefore, we've also, because of that overexposure, we overprotect. And so even for us, like, we have a very amazing neighborhood, and again, we don't take it for granted, and we don't live unwisely, but at the same time, like, we've had to stretch ourselves a little bit of, like, when the kids are with our neighbor friends, it's okay for them to go around the block and out of sight. It's okay for them, we've let them ride bike back from school, just Kinsley and Summit, and Taylor just kind of drove around to, like, the meeting point, and so they were on this bike path, and, like, they had to navigate it themselves. Kinsley left something at the gym one day, and this is one of the things the book talks about. It's like, have them go buy something at the grocery store by themselves, give them the money, make them go find it, ask for help if they need it, make the purchase, and come back. Well, we haven't gotten to that far yet, but Kinsley forgot something at the gym, and I was going to go in with her. I was like, no. So I pulled up to the front door. She had to walk in. She had to go to the front desk and say, I forgot something in the kids area. So she went back to the kids area. She had to ask the teacher and walk back out. And she was so proud of herself. And it's just like those little things that's part of that, like, building that risk and giving them experiences that they wouldn't have otherwise. And then with play, it's just, for us, it's constantly like, hey, let's give you more space to make the decisions, and not over, like, don't do that. It's constantly with someone in Kinsley, 6 and 7 or 5 and 7, to try to, like, get them to stop fighting, but trying to give them space to navigate some of that on their own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as we kind of wrap up this conversation a little bit, we had 4 handles that, as we're just going through, breaking them down a little bit more, figure out which one you kind of align with, or which one maybe you need to work on this week. And so what's the first handle?
The first one is own your attention. Attention fragmentation doesn't go away when we turn 25. We can't multitask our way to peace. So try phone-free zones. No, like I just said, having a full Sabbath offline. So setting aside your phone for an entire day or for 12 hours or whatever the case is, finding those things. I just listened to a podcast, the Good Hang podcast with Amy Poehler, very entertaining. And she had Aziz Ansari on there. And he talked about how he just uses a flip phone, and he hasn't had email in 10 years. So he has an assistant that navigates email and stuff, but he just says it deepens his creativity and friendship. When he gets lost on the road, he has to call his wife and have her give him directions, or he has to stop and talk to somebody. He finds himself calling friends from afar. And so just kind of another example of, like, people catching on to this and realizing how much better it makes their life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The second point is crave what's real. And I think, this conversation can swing really far one way to say technology is bad, but that's not what we're saying. It's just a tool to be used. And so in the book, he says, to strengthen real world communities, the more virtual our world becomes, the more we crave the real. And so crave it and take opportunities to be around it as much as you can.
Yeah, for sure. Dinner with friends, walks without earphones, church community, finding ways to serve are all ways that you can do that. Number 3 is curate your digital life. And so audit your apps, delete what drains you, keep what connects you, turn off notifications, set those limits on certain apps that steal your time. Even ChatGPT for me, like, I use it, it's been really fun to kind of figure out how can I use it ethically and effectively, that it doesn't like, I'm not telling it, hey, do this for me, but how can I do this better? How help me think about this in new ways. But at the same time, like I've realized there's been times where I've had to solve a problem and I've like immediately my brain goes to, oh, I should just plug that in. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to sit in this for 5 minutes and actually try to think this through on my own. And so just even things like that, technology in general, they can be a great tool, but they can quietly take over. And so just, again, for me recently, it's been a big audit of like, all right, I want to curate my digital life. I'm trying to like limit my usage by like 70% from what I was 2 weeks ago. And it's a big leap, but yesterday I hit the mark and it was just like, oh my goodness, I feel so much more free and so much less stressed out. And I filled that time, like those in between times, in different ways. And we got the Sudoku puzzle. Like it's just feeling really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then the last one is to relearn play and risk. We have missed some of that outdoor freedom that we used to get, but we can choose it now by, playing sports with friends or going on a hike, trying something new, or simply allowing boredom, allowing yourself to be bored and to figure out something else to do. Kids and adults grow stronger through small risks and challenges, and life offline gives that, and screens often shield us from it. And so find ways to try something new. I feel like a trend right now is like rejection therapy. I think that's like all over my For You page right now, is people like dancing in public because they're like, who cares? Like, I'm just going to try something, take a risk. So you could do that. Or you could limit your screen time and your phone use and hang out with some friends as well, and just let your kids go around the block without following them for a second, or let them take a risk or try something new, and be able to sit in the uncomfortable and the fear a little bit for a little bit longer.
Are any of those do any of those stand out as being more difficult for you?
I think for me, it's the curating your digital life, I think, is just pretty hard for me, is to figure out how to set your boundaries. And I think I'm very aware of where my time is going as far as what I'm doing on my phone, but figuring out what the balance is, and to having the self-control to hit the, don't bypass the warnings on your phone or on your social media apps, actually sticking to the boundaries that you're trying to set. So what about for you? Is there one for you?
I mean, that one, but also the own your attention. Like I can just, it's constant that my mind drifts in different places. And, when I'm working on my computer, I also have access to my phone. And so even just, I reworked my deep focus, or like the focus part of your phone, of what the work one is. So I still have access to the things that I need for work, but I don't have access to anything else when I'm in like the work mode. And so I just think that attention thing, and just even, we've gotten in the habit, I think a lot of people, when you watch something, whether it's Netflix or you're watching a movie or watching a sporting event, and you're also doing other things, you're also scrolling, you're also, just trying to get more stuff done. And so even just if I'm choosing to watch something, I want to be present in whatever that is, whether that's watching a football game or watching a show or a movie with Taylor. And so instead of inviting those distractions and those things that take our attention away, just giving your attention to one thing. So I would say those are the big ones for me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. So as we wrap up now, what is like one or two big takeaways you hope that someone gets out of this conversation or implements into their life?
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, we may have grown up rewired. You may have grown up, you felt seen listening to this. But we don't have to stay anxious and distracted. We can rebuild what was lost: attention, community, creativity. That line that I think you read it, but the more virtual our world becomes, the more we crave the real. And so crave what's real spiritually, what's real emotionally, what's real relationally. And so I think that's the biggest thing. And then I just think final encouragement is to pause this week and ask, where is my attention going, and where could I be more present? And just to pick one real world connection and pursue it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Thanks for listening, guys. That's that's what we have on the anxious generation, which I feel like we could unpack even more. But we love you guys. If subscribe, send this to someone too. Maybe it's another parent in your life or someone else that would benefit from the conversation. But yeah, we love you guys. Follow us, Going Somewhere Podcast on Instagram.
Absolutely. And if this book really stood out to you, you can get it on Amazon or wherever you get books. So give it a listen, give it a read. But we'll see you down the road on the Going Somewhere podcast. We're all going somewhere.
We might as well go there together.
See ya.